And then we have all the things that happened in 2022, which is like Luna and then FTX. And
Mantra crashed 90% or so in the last, what is it? Yeah, it's been a while already for a couple of
13th of April.
Exactly.
What ended up happening is that it was...
Welcome to a new episode of the AltCryptoCast, and today we've got a very special one. We're here in a new setup. We're in Dubai for Token 2049. Obviously, Fritz is going to be with us as usual, but we have a very special guest for this one. We've got Jayant Ramanand, the co-founder and COO of...
There's no title.
There's
no title.
Of Mantra Chain. He's going to join us. We're going to talk about Mantra, obviously, and a bit more about his life and how he got started in crypto. So, Jay, I'm going to mention you Jay from now on. Very good to have you. Could you give the listeners a bit of an introduction on who you are and obviously a bit about Mantra Chain as well?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, first of all. Appreciate that you've given this opportunity to have a conversation, and would love to get into all things crypto and Mantra related going forward. So yeah, my name is Jay. Everyone in crypto just calls me that because nobody has time for second syllables. I'm co-founder of Mantra Chain, but I'm not the COO.
Oh, I thought so.
I'm the general purpose problem solver, which basically means that if there is a problem that we don't exactly know where it fits in, that's mine to deal with. Our COO is actually here based in Dubai, so a lot of so he's slightly more like with the traditional finance side of things, and primarily because we're like bridging crypto and traditional finance and the real world in general. We need people that can speak both languages. Sometimes I think I might be a little bit too much of a crypto degen to do that.
I like crypto degen.
I like being a crypto degen as well, but then like in the course of building Mantra out over the past 5 years or so, almost now, one of the things that I've realized is that there is an element where we want to believe like in this utopian world that decentralized finance in the way that it exists is going to happen and it's going to go forward. But the real world is complex and messy.
Yeah.
And we need to be operating in this complex and messy world. And we need people that have the experience of navigating this complex and messy world, as well as having the understanding of how to transpose this onto technology going forward.
Yeah.
So just a little bit about background as to how I became the crypto degen over here.
Yeah.
I have two lives, which is pre-crypto, post-crypto. In my pre-crypto world, I spent a lot of time working in microfinance in India, where I'm from. I'm from Hyderabad. There's a place called Mehboob, which is one of the most economically backward districts in India. And I started at 19 working in that space to provide financial products to farmers in rural parts of the world. And one of the things that really stood out for me is that, yeah, we can make change happen over here. But it's impossible to make that change happen because even to facilitate a $100 loan costs $40. So that seemed like insane.
Yeah. Not efficient at all.
Not efficient at all. So to be honest, like around that time when this realization happened is when the Bitcoin white paper came out and I started reading about it. I didn't really understand how we could do anything, but I was like, let's explore this a little bit more.
Did you find it interesting the moment you sort of heard about it or only later?
I found it interesting a little bit later because I was almost like too naive to understand the value at that point in time. You know, I was like, oh, okay, new tech, let's see what it is. I saw it on like some forum somewhere and I was like, cool. And at that point in time, I just had friends of mine in college that were doing all sorts of stuff with it at that point. And I was like, okay, that's one way to think about it. So yeah, that's where it started from. And I got into the traditional finance space working with Standard & Poor's doing credit risk. Primarily because I think I've been figuring out how to get financial products into the hands of people that have so far been forgotten by traditional finance for the most part. Or even if not forgotten, but it's just like so prohibitive in being able to access it. So that was my pre-crypto journey where it was just understanding the ground reality. So like working my way bottom up from the base of the economic strata to like corporate India to like the way above that where banks in the Middle East, and those are some of the clients that I was working with. But that's where I realized that, you know, there is this entire blockchain future that exists. DeFi was starting to become a little bit of a thing, not necessarily the way we see it right now, where it's become acceptable.
Yeah, true.
So that's where I started getting into crypto full time. And my first full time job in crypto was actually with a crypto custodian, because I understood way back in 2017, 18 that this is an evolution of finance. It's not the revolution that a lot of people imagine it to be. So if it's an evolution of finance, then how do you bring not just the people along for the journey, but also the institutions along for the journey? So crypto custody is critical infrastructure, but I'll be honest, it's not the most exciting place to work. Like crypto custody is like keep your keys safe, deal with all of these things.
It's boring.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say that, but yes.
Yeah, kind of.
So that was crypto custody, and that's where I started off. And in about 2020, I met my co-founder JP, and that's where we started building the summer of DeFi. Is when we started figuring out that we can actually start providing these products in a decentralized way. Again, I was very naive at that point in time, thinking that we can have Ethereum smart contracts and the way that we're doing it become like the way the rest of the world, 8 billion of us, access finance. Not really, because it was still limited to only like maybe a few million people that were using it. And so that's where it started building it out, where we started iterating on a lot of these financial products. So staking, borrowing and lending. We had a launchpad over there to get people into the ecosystem.
This is 2021? 2020?
This is in 2020. Yeah.
2020.
2020, at the summer of DeFi as well. So Mantra started in August of 2020.
Yeah.
And so we've been building it out since then. And we get up to like 2021, 2022. The goal was always for us to have our own blockchain. At that point in time, we were thinking of going down the route of Polkadot parachain and like building over there, because part of it is I don't necessarily want to worry about consensus. I'd like the security to work with a technology that's been battle tested. And then we have all the things that happened in 2022, which is like Luna and then FTX. And
Tough year.
Tough year, but great learning, because it accelerated my understanding of how this ecosystem works, where innovation comes at a cost. That cost is sometimes a lot greater than what it seems when you start off with it. And one of the things with this kind of innovation is that it's the Wild West.
Yeah.
Right? And in the Wild West, not everyone gets to the other side. But to bring the entire world along for this journey, there needs to be some kind of guardrails and safety measures in place.
Yeah.
And that seed of an idea is what triggered us to start building Mantra Chain out. Because building a chain that is only going to talk to other blockchains and crypto assets and just remain in that echo chamber that at least I used to live in, is not the way forward, because all we're going to do is have the same products and a slightly different packaging to the same people that use it. So that's why the idea was that we need a blockchain of our own, because blockchain is what? It's just a ledger, right? It's a ledger specifically designed for a couple of use cases. So for us, that became that we need to bring the rest of the world onto the blockchain, because there's so many good things that you can achieve by tokenizing assets and bringing them into the crypto world. But to be able to do that for real world assets, because that's where like real value sits at this point in time, and that's where most people in the world want to access this kind of value. To do that, there needs to be some sort of real world assets require real world compliance in some ways. Most blockchains that exist out there are general purpose blockchains for the most part. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Ethereum. I love Solana. It's a great place to be. But
Degen, memes.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And depending on what you want from a blockchain, there are different use cases.
Yeah, exactly.
So we built Mantra Chain out specifically for the purpose that we want to be able to bring real world value onto a blockchain and be able to get real people that may not be exposed to crypto to start interacting with it. Ideally in a way where you don't necessarily even know that it's crypto at the back end. It's just like an app.
Yeah, you don't really notice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best one.
So that's the journey over there. And now we're here and we're still building.
We're still building. A nice one. I mean, I think the story is very interesting on how you started with it as well. And I'm curious on how does such a thing work on starting a project like this? So you said you met your co-founder JP. You obviously had the idea that we need to have a new chain, new product. How does something like this go? You sit down, you say, you know what, let's build this, or can you take us a bit on what steps would you need to create something like this?
Okay, I think there were a couple of different ingredients that came up almost fortuitously that we arrived at this conclusion. So on my side, I've been looking at institutional custody, institutions coming on board. I also used to run all the validators for Mantra in the beginning, so I understood like the infrastructure that's needed to run a blockchain and how things like that work. Because essentially, like validators are where data is propagated on a blockchain. And also been looking at like tokenizing financial products. JP, on the other hand, has been looking at tokenization in his own life in different ways. So he'd gone through a couple of iterations of it, and maybe in 2018 when he was doing it, it wasn't necessarily ready for it. So when we started building together, the goal was always that let's create something wherein we can, all the ideas that we've had that haven't really worked out.
Yeah.
They haven't worked out because we haven't had the right infrastructure in place, right? So if we want these ideas to happen, I have two options. I can wait for someone to build it, or I can roll up my sleeves and build it myself.
Yeah.
So that's where we started chatting, and we were like, let's build Mantra Chain out. Let's build it on a Cosmos tech stack, because Cosmos as a technology, I think is beautiful.
Okay.
Primarily because it does two things. It gives us the opportunity to customize a blockchain to what we want without having to worry about consensus. Mm-hmm. It also gives us the sovereignty of a validator set that supports what our vision is.
Yeah.
So that's where we just came together and started building it. And the canvas of what this blockchain is going to look like is the first step. And everyone talks about like, there's so much infra going on, not enough apps. The reason there aren't enough apps is that the infra doesn't support a lot of these use cases. So if we're building for the next few decades, to say that let's shoehorn existing business models into whatever blockchain technology is available is basically creating a setup wherein we're going to be having more crypto problems that require more crypto solutions to solve these crypto problems.
Yeah.
So think of it this way, like L2s are because Ethereum doesn't scale. But why are L2s needed? Because Ethereum is 10-year-old technology.
Yeah.
In crypto, that's like
It's a lifetime.
Lifetime.
So by building our own chain, we've done a couple of things, right? We have the ability to have our compliance modules in place so that if we're tokenizing assets that are in the real world that require some kind of real world regulatory checks, we have that as part of the modules that are built on chain. If we if we're onboarding users, and these users need to go through some sort of a KYC check, because we don't necessarily want to have money laundering or any of these other nefarious actors, because there's a lot of those.
A lot.
So that's where the idea came from, that real world assets need real world compliance, real world users need real world safety measures. To do this on an existing blockchain doesn't really work out so well. So let's build our own, because now what we have is control of the entire tech stack, so that if at some point in time a regulator comes and says that this is how you need to be operating a blockchain, most of the blockchains will probably say, okay, cool story, we'll get around to it at some point in time. But we're designed specifically to make sure that we're able to provide these in a compliant way. So that flexibility is what having our own chain provides.
Yeah.
And that's the base layer before we get to the applications and start coming on top of them.
And so maybe it's good to talk a bit about Mantra as well, as in, I think a lot of listeners already know what Mantra is, but let's say we have someone who has no clue. Could you say in a couple minutes, what is Mantra all about? What does it do? And what does it stand for?
Absolutely. Mantra has always been about bringing real users and accessing real products on a blockchain.
Yeah.
We've gone through a couple of iterations, and right now, how we've seen it over the past 3 years of building Mantra Chain out is that we need to have a method of tokenizing assets and bringing them onto a blockchain. Because when we say tokenizing assets, it's not representing it on crypto and then saying that this is how it's going to work. Mantra is bringing real ownership, which doesn't exist right now, for assets onto a blockchain. So how do we make that happen, and how do we ensure that we're able to collaborate with businesses that want to take advantage of the economies of scale, as well as be able to build out over there, while also having users that otherwise would just not have the ability to access quality products, be able to do it on our blockchain. So we're building the platform on which, or the canvas, let's call it, where real businesses, real users can come on board together, work with assets that have been tokenized. And tokenization is just another fancy way of saying it exists somewhere and now it exists on a blockchain.
Yeah.
So we're providing a base to be able to do that. And then once we have the building blocks of all of these elements of compliant crypto that exist, the rest of the world can come and start iterating on top of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously we're going to talk a bit about it later as well, about what Mantra does and how Mantra looks at the future. And also some big partnerships that you guys have secured. So just for my information, how big is Mantra as in developers, team base? Are we looking at you're doing this with JP and that's it? Do we have a team? How does something like this work?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, let's be honest. It takes a village to raise a product.
Exactly. It takes a lot of people to build
It
something
takes a
properly.
lot of people to build it. So we have a pretty robust team at this point in time that have been with us
Nice.
for a fair period of time. A lot of good developers working with us, and we have an operations team, and then we have also a compliance and legal team that's coming in, because every single aspect of coming on chain requires people to spend hours and days toiling away to make sure that it happens. So it's not just JP and myself. John is the face of the company, and he does a great job as CEO. I'm the guy that's preferably in the background and doesn't want to be talking to people. Make an exception for you guys here.
You're a bit more on the
Appreciate
backside, sort of.
Yeah, I like being at the back and getting shit done.
Yeah.
So we have a big team, and then we've been together for 4.5 years now, and the team's grown, and then it's gone back down, and then it's grown again. One thing is for certain, that there are some phenomenal individuals behind Mantra that are working very hard to make this a reality. And yeah, we've got, I'll be honest, like some of the people that I work with have the kind of caliber that they could be doing anything that they want with their lives. And they choose to work on this problem of bringing assets on chain and tokenizing them. So I would say it's a privilege to have these people as colleagues.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So at the start you told like all the hard problems that are left, you are there to solve them.
Yeah.
Like what has been like the hardest problems for you to solve to get where you are guys now?
To be honest, I think the hardest problem has been to let go of my own naive nature. That an ideal way in which that things should work is not how the real world works.
Okay.
But no, some of the problems that we've had is that the first one is that DeFi, in the way that we imagined it in 2020, doesn't scale. It scales in terms of the technology, but it doesn't scale in terms of the user acceptance.
Yep.
The other problem that I've realized is it's not necessarily a technology problem that we're dealing with, because the tech is fairly commoditized.
Yeah.
Most blockchains are like hyper efficient and they're going to get faster. Most gas fees are now tending to zero, so all of the problems that we had in the past no longer exist in that way, that it's prohibitively expensive. What we do have as a problem right now is user education, because let's zoom out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So the way that the people in the late 90s, early 2000s were not necessarily familiar with email and that being the mode of operation. So what ended up happening is that you needed to educate people on how to use email and how that worked. So right now we're going through this entire process wherein if emails did that for data and information that transfers around the world very easily, blockchains are doing it for value that transfers around the world very easily. But then when you tell people that there is a different way of perceiving value, it almost like breaks their brain.
Yeah.
It's like your data or your IP or your currency or your financial product, you can now fractionalize it, you can tokenize it. I can own 1 square foot of an apartment somewhere.
Yeah.
And they're like, how does that work?
Yeah.
So that's the problem I'm dealing with at this point in time.
Yeah.
And we have some fantastic developers on our side who make it as simple as possible to do it. But one of the issues, and we're limited by the technology of our time, which is the user experience in crypto is not why any of us got into crypto.
No, not at
So
all.
that is still like the biggest problem. And I don't have an answer for it, but that's one of the biggest problems that I'm trying to figure out. How do we make it easier to deal with?
I think it's inherently difficult with crypto that you have the ownership, but that means if you have the ownership, you also have the risk because you have to take care of it. I feel like with the user acceptance for products and how are you going to bridge that gap?
To be honest, that's a philosophical question that I'm trying to chew on, and maybe you can weigh in on it a little bit.
If someone has the answer.
Yeah, if you have the answer, then I'm happy to
Then let us
hear.
know.
But the thing is, like, everyone that wanted to be their own bank is already in crypto,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, true.
One of the things that I've realized is a lot of people out there don't want to custody their own tokens,
No.
their own values. So there is the ability that you have, you can own your own value and you can own your own assets and you can do that. But then it's also almost binary, because if you're your own bank, you also have the responsibility of being your own bank. Not a lot of people want that kind of responsibility, because unless you live and breathe crypto, you don't necessarily want to be doing that. Because let's take, for example, there's a family of like 5. Parents are working non-stop. They don't necessarily want to have to worry about, oh, my kid said something or pressed a button somewhere and now all my tokens have been sent to the burn address on Ethereum.
Yeah.
So there needs to be some sort of a middle layer. And the way that I'm thinking about it is that we have the ability to own it, but there still needs to be some sort of credibly neutral way where you have ownership and transparency of everything that's happening right now, because without privacy and transparency, like those are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
But you still need to have the ability of some sort of real world recourse. Like if something were to go wrong in your bank, for example, you can call up the bank and you can fix it.
Yeah.
But if something were to go wrong with your keys, there's not much you can do.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people will just say sucks to suck.
Yeah.
Now, for 8 billion people in the world, I can't tell them that here's this beautiful future that exists. Or you made a mistake, sucks to suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the battle right now, that we have the ability to own it. All the technology exists today that you can bring these things on chain, but a lot of people are hesitant because of the risk associated with it. So the people that are here for the high risk, high reward nature of crypto are already here. But the people that I think could use this as the rails on which the next generation of finance can be built, that it's still a work in progress. And I think it requires thoughtfulness, not just from the builders over here, but it also requires buy-in from regulators out there. Because for the most part, in the world right now, you have users that trust their centralized regulators. Now, until a regulator who is trusted transfers that trust to a trustless system, users are not going to be comfortable using blockchains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is that's the evolutionary gap that I see right now. And I don't have an answer to it other than educate everyone as much as possible about it. Show them how you have the ability to perform these checks and measures, have permission elements of a blockchain within which you can operate safely, but you still have the ability to go and be a Wild West degen should you choose to. So composability, some level of compliance, and interoperability. I think this is the way forward. How we get around to it is still a work in progress, though.
Yeah. I like how you say that you're trying to sort of solve it, but you don't know the answer as well. If someone in the comments lets us know the answer, that will be lovely. We're all happy days.
Hey, listen, give me the unlock, man. I will build it. Just the question is, what are we building?
Let's do it. Now, obviously we have to talk about the elephant in the room with Mantra.
Yeah.
Mantra crashed 90% or so in the last. What is it? Yeah, it's been a while already. For a couple.
13th of April.
Exactly. So take us with us on how does this work? Because that's what I'm trying to sort of see in. Do you get a notification on your phone? Does someone call you? Do you sort of see what's happening here? How did your day look the moment it happened?
Well, it happened at 2:30 in the morning Hong Kong time. So
Yeah,
my
you
phone
were-
is on mute as it is right now.
Yeah.
And a couple of people were fairly distributed. So a few people were awake at that point. And to be honest, it was the price of home that went down. The chain itself, which is plugged in and given, like if it goes down, we have all those notifications in place. What ended up happening is that it was just market activity. It was unfortunate in the fact that this kind of cascading liquidation led to the downfall in price. I woke up a few hours later to several hundred missed calls on my phone.
Wow.
I can imagine.
Wondering what's going on. And then by that point in time, we already had a group of people on it. And then there was a war room that we set up almost instantly. We started addressing it because there were a couple of misconceptions that people had. And what happened was a product of market reflexivity. It wasn't necessarily because there was any activity done by any particular individual, definitely not the team. And when we saw what's going on and we saw all of the misinformation that was spreading over there, I'll be honest, it didn't feel particularly great because you've spent your life building something out, and then you're getting the Twitter take, which is not only wrong, it's just blatantly ignorant and refusing to see the light of day. So immediately after that, we had messaging that went out. We were available. JP was in front of the camera, because one of the things is in crypto that when things go bad in some way or another, people run away and hide.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing that where we want to set ourselves apart, because we're here for the long term. That when things get hard, not only do we step up, we also fix it.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily think that there was anything that anyone, not me, I'm not necessarily a trader, so I have a theoretical understanding of what happened over there. But I don't think there was anything I could have done differently at that point in time. Yeah. And what happened is a result of belief in a project that somebody saw an opportunity to be able to make a quick buck somewhere, and they took it. Yeah. What that means is that we're left with picking up from where things are left off. The people that have been with us in our community and that have seen us build for the last 4 years have been very supportive. Our partners have been very supportive through this entire journey. Nice. Because anyone that knows any of our team knows that we're not here to run away or do anything sketchy of any kind. And we're here, and like part of it is that we're docs, my face is out here. And as like a Hindu myself, not necessarily like a practicing religious Hindu, but at least in spirit, to think that Om and mantra can be associated with anything other than goodness and like building towards the future, I take it as a personal insult. So I take it very personally over there. Yeah. So I am here to, if not set the record straight, but today, but when you see the work that we continue doing over here over the next few years, I think I let the market decide for themselves what they think.
Yeah. Did you have any sleep that day?
No. I mean, I think for about 10 days after that, it was very little sleep. And for a lot of the people on our team who are wonderful individuals, this was perhaps the first time that they've gone through something
like
in a
this,
crypto cycle like this. I've seen my own portfolio in crypto go up and then go down over the last few cycles. So when I see price volatility, it's not pleasant, but I also don't see it as a doom and gloom situation where the world has come to an end. And the one thing is that Om, the token, did go down in value drastically over a very short period of time. But then the thing that I take away from this is that we have a blockchain that, irrespective of what happened to the price of the token, continued doing exactly what it was built to do. Yeah. So to see that kind of resilience in the tech that we built out, while too close to it at this point in time for people to appreciate, over a period of time they will understand, I hope at least, that what we've built is stable, strong, capable of building the next level of products on top of it. Om is the linchpin in the center of everything that's going on over here. The value and the belief of Om may have taken a little bit of a hit. Yeah. But what I see right now is anyone that's been building in crypto long enough knows that this is a part of building, and when you're doing something for the first time, you have issues also that come up that may not have ever happened before. Yeah. So we're dealing with it on a as it comes up, and the one thing is that we're here to build, and tokenizing assets, real world assets coming on chain, users coming on chain. It's not a one cycle thing. It's not a 1 year thing. As a blockchain, we launched only in October of 2023, so we're still in the first 200 days of being live. Most other projects have had a lot less that has put them on the back foot and killed their entire thing. Yeah. What the last 2 weeks has shown us, at least, and I think it's proven a little bit to myself, that no matter what obstacle comes in our way, this vision of bringing the world of finance on chain continues to remain the same. Yeah. At no point in time does that vision depend on exactly what the price of home is. Sometimes it makes it easier to have conversations, sometimes it makes it harder, but the vision remains the same, and that is what I am really proud to have a team that is also working towards this. Yeah.
I mean, it's, like you said, I think it's pretty much the biggest stress test that you can have in the first 200 days of being live. So it's good to see that you guys are, surviving and building as at that point you did before. But like you said, there were quite a few misconceptions, and I can imagine that it's like you said, it feels as if it's sort of your child, and people are spreading news and rumors which might not be true. So, in your understanding, or in a couple of minutes, what happened? What is, because you guys went from, I think it was 6 billion market cap to we're now at 480, I think, this morning. So we're not talking about, a minor dip. We're talking about something really big that happened here. So what happened here? Is it just someone selling some tokens? Is it a snowball that kept on moving? In your understanding, what happened?
So I think, and I'll give you my understanding of the situation. I believe that there was some market activity that happened in which, on a Sunday night in low liquidity environments, somewhere someone sold. That sell created a price dislocation somewhere.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is that there were bots that started arbing because they wanted to make that even. There was, I think, leverage in the perps market at that point in time. It's a little complicated for me to understand, but what I understand is that there were people that were leveraging on Ohm when the price went down, and the leverage of that Ohm also, essentially it's like you have Ohm as collateral. When the price of that collateral goes down, the outstanding is still the same dollar value. That just means that you start liquidating the collateral to cover the part on the other side. And what ended up happening is that there was a unwinding that took place, because as the collateral was being seized and sold off, that led to more of the price being decreased. And then what ended up happening is that it just kept going down. So it's like the price would go down here, then it went out into the rest of the industry, and then it would just keep unwinding the position.
And then you get some FUD.
And then you get a lot of FUD over there, and then now suddenly people see the price has dropped a little bit, which is what would have happened. Then you see a little bit more panic coming in, and then people start selling over there. Then the next thing that comes up are all sorts of accusations on Twitter that, the team did this, which is, the team controls 90% of the tokens. That's what they're doing. All factually incorrect.
Yeah.
We have our dashboard that proves this. But then for the first few days, it was just trying to battle through the misinformation.
Yeah.
And say that, listen, what happened is a product of markets at this point in time. And it was a perfect storm of low liquidity on a weekend, where someone sold a large enough amount that led to a price that went down. That price going down led to the rest of the rest of the industry taking down, and that is what led to the price dip. And when it got to that level, there was a lot of incorrect things being said.
Yeah.
So misinformation, what I've realized over the past 2 weeks, cannot be fought with giving more information, because
Interesting take.
Yeah.
We got on, we said everything we needed to, we've proven to it, it's all on a blockchain. Anyone that knows how to read a blockchain can actually go verify for themselves. People don't necessarily read, people don't necessarily verify, they catch on to something because hate gets more clicks than factual authenticity. So misinformation, I've realized, can only be fought with education. So the idea is that we're here. If there are questions that come up, I'm happy to hop onto another call, be live on an AMA or whatever it takes to be able to sit here. One thing is, we're not going anywhere. So it's what do you want to talk about? I'm happy to talk about that as well. So that's what happened with, to my understanding, with what went on over there. And I know some people want point to the person who made it happen, but to be honest, we've been around as a token for 5 years on the Ethereum side. We built our chain. We're deprecating the ERC20 over the next 5 years or so. I mean, the legacy Ohm will eventually become native Ohm on Mantra chain. Half the supply is in public hands. You're a wallet address. I don't know who you are as an individual, so I can't point fingers at anyone. And we can show that we have this blockchain where all of these tokens are sitting, and it's all been publicly voted on through proposals and everything else that's been going on. Which is why if there was something fishy that happened, our first supporters would be the ones calling us out, but they're still with us. The only people that started spreading misinformation were probably the ones that have said, I've never heard of Ohm before, I've never heard of Mantra before, and so that means that these guys are definitely up to something that, because I don't know about you, must be something else in the Paris.
Do you not find it worrisome that whenever we buy, for example, a token, And I'm not talking about the size of Mantra, but we do a lot of low caps as well. There's a tool called Bubble Maps. I'm not sure if you know about it, where when we buy something, we check Bubble Maps and see how is the supply distributed. Is it not worrisome that for a token as big as Mantra Chain, one person or a couple, let's say, we don't know, but one guy is able to make such a big sell on the token, which causes the price to go down that much, and then eventually you get the snowball of everyone else selling. Is it not worrisome that one guy has such a big amount of the supply of a token as big as Mantra?
So I think that it's not just one person, because it's like markets react like herds.
Yeah.
So someone who maybe, there's a lot of copy traders out there. So somebody who maybe did something over there, triggered off an event that led to other people doing the same thing. So I don't necessarily have the answer to that. But it is not ideal to have a situation wherein in an hour something as drastic as this could happen.
Exactly.
And lead to a cascading liquidation effect over there. But all that tells us is that as an industry, we have a lot of the elements wherein you're allowed to do whatever you want. You're able to do whatever you feel like doing. How much of that needs to come under scrutiny? Is there any scrutiny that needs to happen? I don't know. But it was, I think, a perfect storm of events on a low liquidity weekend where nobody who's probably a professional trader was even awake at that point in time to be able to take the other side of what's going on or step in. So
to take the other trade. Also, what was the role of the exchanges in this time? Like, so this happens. Did you guys get on calls with Binance and other exchanges to see what can be done, or how does this go?
So that's an ongoing conversation that's happening, and that's where we are engaging with them in whichever way we can. Primarily because these exchanges are partners of ours. In the industry, exchanges are where retail audiences actually get to know about a lot of these tokens out there. So this is a conversation that is ongoing, and we're in chats with them at this point in time, and that's where we're figuring out what the next steps look like from here forward.
So one thing I want to ask you is, now sort of we're a couple of weeks later. One of the things that's been happening, obviously, is JP is saying, you know what, I'm going to burn my tokens to, show a bit of confidence to the community again. Some say, but once again, to not really spread misinformation, but some say it's a very emotional action to do something like this. What's your opinion on this? What's your stance on this?
I think that's right, and the burn has happened as of we did it yesterday. So
good timing.
So it's available. It's verifiable on chain. It is an emotional aspect to it because when you spend so much time building something out, and there is very little that you can do to actually disprove a lot of the things that are happening over there. The best thing is a show of faith that we're here for the long term. If that means that whatever would have been an upside incentive, we're happy to just get rid of that entirely and say that not here for the quick flip, we're not here to make the money that crypto projects tend to be associated with. We're here to build something meaningful. And if that means to show our community and the new people that are looking at us that we're serious about what we're doing over here, if that requires a ritual sacrifice of burning tokens, then so be it. Because that burn is more to symbolize that we're here for the long term and not going anywhere. And while it doesn't necessarily do anything other than show our seriousness in what's going on over here. So there are a lot of people that have been saying that's a good idea. Some people that are saying that's a bad idea. Doesn't matter what people are saying. I just want them to know that it's to show the level of seriousness that we're working with over here. And that burn is a way to symbolize that the money is not the reason that we were doing any of this thing. And we're going to be continuing to build from here.
Yeah. Also, like looking backwards now at this event, I think for other projects it's something they see. Everybody has looked at this, and are there any lessons or
the biggest learning that you have from this event that's happened?
There's a lot of them. I think the biggest one is that I just said it earlier as well, that misinformation can't be tackled with more information. The second one is that people don't necessarily read very often. So what's important is that a lot of people hop onto the hype bandwagon and then just run with it.
Yeah.
But if you look at exactly how we've been building it out, the one lesson that I've learned, and I think I've internalized it as well, is that if you are a serious builder in this space, and if you are serious about what you're doing, the volatility of the markets will at some point in time catch up with you in some way or another.
Yeah.
Or it will, because we've been building Mantra for a while. There was a time in October when we were at our all-time, October of 2023, when we were at an all-time low of 1.7 cents, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're unfamiliar with the price of what we're building go down. But that also means that the price is not going to determine whether I continue to build this or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
The price is a factor of how the markets believe in us and whether we're doing what we're doing. And I think the valuation of a token in another form is the belief that people have in a project towards what they're building.
Yep.
Excuse me. So what we're building and then the belief in like tokenizing the world and bringing them on chain continues to remain.
Yeah.
That's why we were valued at what we were at. But just like in a day, you don't lose, the tech doesn't become 90% worse.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
It doesn't work like that.
it doesn't work like that. So
Yeah.
the thing is that crypto markets tend to operate on a very short time frame.
Yeah.
But building something of substance still takes time.
Yeah.
So you build long enough, the belief continues, then the market matches that belief. And someone finds a way to make some money going in the other direction because it's like, let's go do something else with the belief. Takes a hit. But then if you really believe in it, then you just have another opportunity to build back stronger.
Yeah.
And that's the lesson. Like, continue to build, continue to be involved in what your belief is. And at some point in time, the market will realize that you're serious and come down to come back you the way that they believe.
Yeah. I think for investors, there's maybe one question I think that will everybody like interested to answer. So when this happened, does this change anything on your daily operations with the team and your budget? And did the crash have an impact on that?
So obviously, like what ends up happening is that when you're a top 20 token, a lot of conversations are a lot easier to have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So from a business development perspective, a lot more people are willing to talk to you. When the price drops, obviously there are people that are spreading misinformation about how this project was not set up the right way or doing any of those things over there. So it comes down to the business continues to operate the way the business has been operating.
Okay.
What changes is that the way in which we communicate with the outside world requires a little bit of adjustment. Because before we used to jump straight into business, now we have to go through an education period and then jump into business. Because now we have to explain what happened, right? In this conversation right now.
Yeah.
So that's probably what has changed. But from we've got some very good partners that have invested in us, and they continue to believe in what we're building over here. So when things get hard and you have the people that have been supporting you step up and support you even more, that gives a kind of confidence in the future that we're building towards that probably makes us double down even harder on what we're doing. So I think that it's not pleasant that we have to have some of these educational conversations and discussions about like the price of home. But what it has shown is that the conviction in what we're building is still there, and we're doubling down on going forward from there.
To go a bit deeper on this, and exactly like you said, partnerships are very important. Looking at the future now for Mantra, you guys have some big partnerships. I mean, we're here in Dubai, we have the MAC partnership. And I'm just curious on perhaps you can sort of give some information on how does something like that work? Because I see, for example, the news. I talk about it on our the X and wherever we are at. But what does something like that mean? Because we saw something, the MAC investing 1 billion, or you do what does it mean? What is it sort of, how does that, what are you guys going to do? Are you going to help build some buildings, or how does something like that go?
So I think this is a great point, because we have that partnership announced.
Yeah, and so many people talk about it, but I have a feeling no one really knows what it actually means.
So what that means is that one of the not just the mark, but in general, whenever we have a partnership that goes up, what that means is that we have a business in the real world that is now working with us to understand how they're going to tokenize parts of that business and bring it onto our blockchain.
Yeah.
So when we say tokenization, the tech exists today. Like tomorrow morning, I can tokenize something and say that it's an asset.
Yeah.
What we are working on with our partners in general is how do we make sure that their business model that they're working with is able to transpose onto a blockchain.
Yeah.
So that takes time. So what that means is that we're working closely with some of the best in the world at this point in time to understand how to, evolve their business models.
Yeah.
So when we're working with real estate partners, when we're working with anyone in the commodity side or anyone in capital markets, what that means is that we're still in the process of understanding how to transpose real-world logic onto a blockchain. And we're working with some people that are experts in their industry in the real world. We have the ability to build the technology part of it. And when we say we have a partnership, we're saying that it's the technology that meets the real-world assets and how we bring it on chain.
Yeah.
So when people talk about it, I think what they talk about is the possibility of a new future in which that you can do this. When people talk shit about it, what they don't talk about is that it's not as easy as flipping a switch and having a crypto product on there. Because let's take, for example, a real estate. Okay, like I think it's important. Let's get into a real world example.
Interest to know like how it works. Yes.
Yeah. So let's get into a real world example over here, right? So if we have some building over here in Dubai where we're sitting,
the Mark Tower,
right? And let's say that we have it tokenized and it exists on a blockchain somewhere. And because blockchains are composable, so now you're able to trade them freely because I can buy bits and pieces of the property. Cool, fine. Now let's say that the next part of it is like, blockchain, you want primitives such as money markets or borrowing and lending platforms, right? So then I use one of these tokenized properties that I've gone through the compliance checks with, and then I've been able to use it as collateral and borrow USDC against it. Because even in the real world, like home loans are like a proliferation of many decades of work that's gone in.
Yep.
So now let's say that I've been able to do this. Technologically, we can do that today.
Yeah.
But now what happens when someone gets liquidated on their USDC and somebody holds the tokenized asset on the underlying?
Yeah.
Now, one of the issues is that if I have a house and that I'm not able to pay back my mortgage on it in the real world, the bank will come and seize the house and tell me how to go about it, and then there's like a transfer of ownership and all of these things happen. Still a very manual and paper-oriented process.
Yeah.
If we have this happen on a blockchain and someone loses control of the underlying asset, the real-world implications are such that I, as a technology person, cannot tell you how that's going to work out.
Yeah.
I need the regulators to help dictate what this is going to look like. So what we're having right now is these conversations with, in such an instance, what is this use case going to look like? Because without that composability, just having an asset on chain is no different than having it in an Excel sheet somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
we don't want over-engineered Excel sheets.
No.
We want transfer of value. So these are not necessarily philosophical conversations, but these are hard regulatory conversations that need to happen.
Yeah.
And let's take another example. Like let's say that I swap one tokenized apartment somewhere for another one. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's. Sorry,
I just need a little bit of water here.
No problem.
For a while.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good that you say about it that a lot of people think these things are very easy to do, and it's all, you know what, we've got a partnership here, let's build something and then tokenize it. But there's a fine line between, like you said, having an over-engineered Excel sheet and actually having something that, adds value and actually works.
Right. So, I mean, before I start coughing a little bit right there, the idea is that we have 190 something countries in the world, depending on who you ask. Dubai is one of the places where they are at they're the tip of the spear, where they're leading the way in how it's going to work out. Now, we're working closely with people over here to figure out how that entire structure works, because once we figure out all the nuts and bolts of it, then we can take it to the larger world. Because in the future, like I'll tell you what my future looks like in this thing. Because right now, I'm only telling you about all the issues that we've got to deal with.
Yeah.
But in the future, what I imagine is that everyone has like a single framework where you can tokenize these assets. Because you own it in the real world, you're probably going to need to go through some sort of a compliance check, because we need to make sure that you're not like some North Korean actor somewhere over there. Now, when you do that, what's going to happen is that I can have a portfolio of real estate where I own bits and pieces, one apartment in Dubai, one apartment in Singapore, something in Hong Kong, I've got something in the US as well. I have emerging markets. I have a marketplace where I can trade all of these things. But the thing is, what this translates to is, that means that the Dubai regulator, the Singapore regulator, the US regulator, every single one of these people that have like legacy infrastructure that dates back centuries is going to have to change. Now, that change is not going to happen overnight. So what we're saying is that we've got the technology in place and we've got the stamina to go through this long drawn process. We're working it out and figuring out what this future looks like.
So in short, so the problem is like, let's say you have a buyer in Dubai and then you have a buyer in the Netherlands, and now the assets gets transferred. What is the impact compliance-wise? And is also tax involved? Or is also something you're looking into how that impacts the deal or the trade? Like, it's the flow of all these things together.
Exactly. Because the thing is that when you buy a house, even when you buy a house, you don't just go and say, that house. Like, you have to go through like a lot of checks over there. There's tax implication, there's compliance implication, there's regulatory implication. You have to have like all sorts of inspections. So just because we can transfer the value of a house in a matter of seconds, like we have 3 seconds blocks. So in 3 seconds, I can transfer ownership to you. But transferring ownership probably means tax implications for you. You don't want to get called up by your tax authority saying that, oh, you now own a house, now you have to pay me like the entire tax on the house. And then you go around having to explain, no, but I only own 1/1000th of the house. They're like, that doesn't happen like that. That's why we're having a lot of these conversations, right? Because every action has a real world implication. And what we've been looking at in crypto is that it just lives in this echo chamber of crypto only. Crypto assets are great because you transfer value instantly. The moment we start bringing the real world onto blockchain rails, we have to also take into account the real world implications of what happens when you transfer value. So that is the difficult part, and that's the challenging bit, which is why I don't see too many people working on that element, because it's not something that you can like wake up, sit, work remotely, and then like get an idea in place. There's a lot of real world conversations, there's a lot of in-person discussions, partnerships that need to be made, trust that needs to be built, and we're only getting started on all of this.
You briefly mentioned already, but looking at the future for Mantra and also the RWA sector in crypto right now, you mentioned it already. Where do you see Mantra in let's say 5 to 10 years? And combined to that, when would you say Mantra has been finished or has been accomplished what we are trying to accomplish? Do you think you'll ever reach that?
I will be fortunate if we were to reach that in my lifetime.
Yeah, that you sort of live the day to...
if I can, because the future, I see a future in which we're able to provide financial products, assets, compliantly to an audience which is the entire world. I come from India. Briefly spoke about my stint in microfinance. I can tell you now itself, nobody in traditional finance is ever going to be looking at the people that are over there. So the idea is that whether you are a minnow who has less than $1,000 of value in your name, or you're a whale that has like hundreds of millions of dollars, I imagine like the future of Mantra is that depending on what type of asset you want to access, what scale you want, there is a marketplace that's available for it. We're able to bring those assets on chain. We're able to provide true credit in the real world, which allows people to scale up and do other things in life. And we're able to become the ledger of record for all real world assets coming on board. And with that network effect, we have more people coming on board. We have more institutions. We have the world building on top of it. And I would love to see, if I can before I die, that we become the equivalent of the internet of all RWAs on our blockchain. So that's where I see it.
That's a nice one. Let's hope Mantra reaches it at some...
I think if there was no obstacles in the way, I think we could get there in the next 10 years. But what the last few weeks have taught me is that even when everything is going for you, there's always an obstacle that comes out somewhere. So we're just here to navigate through anything that the world has to throw at us. And the vision is to become the ledger of record for all RWAs out there.
And to sort of almost wrap this up, we are here now in Dubai, obviously, for Token 2049. Last year we were here and we visited the Mantra stand as well. How are you feeling about Token? Are you guys doing anything special this week? And are you going to visit Token 2049?
I am going to get back to work right after this, but JP is going to be speaking at Token shortly. He's going to be sharing some information primarily to tell everyone else that
Yep.
we're here to stay, we're not going anywhere,
Yeah.
and what measures we're taking in terms of like listening to our community, further decentralizing the network, making it more robust so that we can not necessarily stop things from happening, but at least make it more difficult for situations to repeat like they have in terms of the past few weeks. And part of it is that we're here to build. He's going to be speaking at Token in a few hours. The rest of our team is here, going to be there as well. And if there are questions at Token, then we're around to answer them.
Yeah, very nice. Do you like the conferences, the crypto conferences? Do you go to them often?
Personally, I go to them if there is something specifically I need to do over there.
Yeah.
But I am quite introverted, so I'm not a fan of being out and about in the bigger masses. I love chatting with people over a cigarette at these crypto conferences.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like being in the conference itself.
Very nice, actually. And has there been some things that we still need to talk about? But you say, you know what, we're Mantra, we're doing this. Are there some things that you say, you know what, everyone that's listening, you need to know about this, or you need to sort of hear about this? Or have we, I think we crossed quite a bit.
I think we've covered most things out there, but I think the one thing is that we are going to be further decentralizing our validator network as it comes up, because we've been in the first 200 days of being live. One of the things is that I want to make sure that the validators that we have are crucial to our support, making sure the blockchain works. We've proven that the blockchain works the way it's supposed to. We have a few more things that we're going to be putting out there in the near future. But otherwise, I think we've covered everything that we needed to talk about. And we're going to be building more and more as it comes about from here on.
Interesting. I mean, I think we sort of crossed everything, and we talked quite a bit about Mantra as well. Anything, Fritz, that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, so thanks so much. I really appreciate all the insights we got, and I think you guys are doing a great job. Yeah.
So what you're pretty much saying is you guys are here to stay. The crash obviously that happened, it's a sad sort of event that happened, but you're building the tech, and that's what it's all about. The price is, I mean, obviously a lot of people are looking at the price, but it's more of a side thing to the tech that you guys are building. And I think that's important for everyone to know. And like you said, the misconceptions and the misinformation that's being spread, that's just what happens at these events. But it's good to see you guys are, you know, not, like you said, you can throw a lot of information at it, but at some point you got to say, you know what, it happened, and we move on and we show what we're building here. So I like what I'm seeing, and I think it's a very good information that we had here. So I want to thank you as well for being here.
Thank you so much for having me here. It was a pleasure talking to both of you today. And
Absolutely.
Appreciate the forum to have a conversation.
Absolutely. I think it's important, especially for projects like this, that we talk about it in a bit more in-depth and show what's happening and what you guys are building. So let's say in 5 to 10 years, we have it all done and we record another episode and then see where you guys are at.
Sounds good. I mean, I'm looking forward to that. And then at that point in time, we'll talk about the next set of problems.
Exactly. What events have happened. All right, then with that, I want to wrap up this episode. Thank you, Jay, obviously, and Fitz for being here in Dubai. We're going to go out to the heat in a bit again. Now we're in the cool air conditioning room, but yeah, we're going to go out a bit. Thanks everyone for watching as well. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments, and be sure to like this episode and subscribe to all the channels. They can find you on X, I assume.
That's correct.
Any other channels that you sort of...
I'm on Telegram, but X is the best way to reach out.
Yeah.
And what I would really appreciate is that if you have a question or if you just think that there's something that we should be doing better, I would love for you to drop a comment over here. And I can't necessarily go and remove all of the misinformation, but I can do a better job of being involved in front of it and educating our people about whatever questions we have. So the more we interact with each other, the more we have this conversation, the better it is for the industry. So thanks so much for having me here.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everyone.